in the case of an emergency, always contact your veterinarian or the emergency service, your local emergency centre, rather than jumping online, rather than heading to forums, rather than asking people questions online, because that advice is going to come to you potentially too late, and that could have disastrous consequences for your dog. The things that dogs eat is just amazing. Sometimes you wonder why they've even put it in their mouth, let alone swallowed it, and then gone back for more. And the chances are, if you've got a dog, you may have come across an episode where you're wondering whether they've been poisoned, whether they've eaten something that's actually going to cause them harm. And that's what I'm talking about today.
Welcome to Call the Vet, the show that answers all your dog and cat questions so they can live healthier, happier lives. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Call the Vet. We're on episode number 56 now, and if we've not met before, if you've not listened to the previous 55 episodes, then I'm Dr. Alex, and I'm the veterinarian behind ourpetshealth.com, and I'm here to answer your questions all about how to look after your dog or your cat to the best of your ability, whether they're unwell, whether they're happy, healthy, and you're just wondering how you can keep them that way. If you've got any questions for me, if there's something that's always been burning in the back of your mind, or you've been just too shy or too afraid to ask your vet, simply head over to callthevet.org and I will be more than happy to get your question featured on an upcoming episode. Also, if you're not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my future episodes. And while you're at it, you could also head over to ourpetshealth.com/petcareguide, where you can get my free 5-step guide to keeping your pet as happy and healthy as possible. But with all that out the way for the intro, let's get into today's question. And today's question is really short and sweet, and it's from Kenny, who says, "My puppy just ate a grape. Will he be okay? He's a 1-year-old Siberian Husky." So grape and raisin poisoning is definitely something that every dog owner should be aware of, and it's actually one that a lot of people aren't. But a single grape for a dog, for a Siberian Husky that's 1-year-old, is going to be absolutely fine for a dog of this size. I actually do have a poisoning calculator to help you know when there could be a problem in the future, and if you've got a dog of any size, I definitely encourage you to check out that calculator, because it's always good to know when you should be worried, when you really need to seek action and seek help, and when you can maybe just pass it up as experience and know that it's not a problem this time and you just need to make more care and make certain that a poisoning isn't going to happen in the future. Now, as for grapes and raisins themselves, there's a lot of actually uncertainty around why they poison dogs. It's an unknown toxin, so we don't know why it is. We don't know what it is in the grape or the raisin that causes the problem, but what happens is it causes kidney failure, so it damages the kidneys, it knocks them out, they stop working, and that is ultimately fatal. But as well as that unknown toxin, so you can't just avoid the skin, you can't just avoid the seeds. We don't know, it seems to be everywhere. But there's also an individual dog sensitivity. So there will be some dogs who seem to be completely unaffected. They can eat grapes, they can eat raisins without having any problems at all. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, you get some dogs who are incredibly sensitive and they only really need to eat a handful, if that. Sometimes it might be just 1 or 2 if they're a small breed or a toy breed dog. And that's really where the difficulty lies, because do we just wait for signs? Well, no, because kidney disease, it only shows itself quite late in the game once the damage is already done. Or do we aggressively treat every dog? Well, that's something that you need to make your own mind up. And if you head over to that poisoning calculator, I'll leave the link in the show notes, then that runs through the amount of grapes that you need to think about as kind of posing a risk for your dog, and also the discussion about some of those other points that I've mentioned. And, you know, that's a really short and sweet answer to Kenny's question. But my other big kind of comment to this question is that if you have a question where emergency treatment might be needed, and clearly that's the case with a poisoning, it's always going to be best to contact your veterinarian or the local emergency veterinary service straight away, so that if treatment is needed it's not going to be too late. When it comes to poisoning, different poisons, different chemicals, they act in different ways and they take different times to work. In some cases, for example, xylitol, which is a sugar-free sweetener, that can start working within about 30 minutes, if not a bit faster. So you've got really very little time to find out if you need to seek help and then to seek help. Other poisons, you've got a lot longer where you can get away with not seeking help until, a few hours later. But equally, it's going to be better if maybe you make your dog sick. Some poisons, it's better not to make them sick. So really, in the case of an emergency, always contact your veterinarian or the emergency service, your local emergency centre. Rather than jumping online, rather than heading to forums, rather than asking people questions online, because that advice is going to come to you, potentially too late. And that could have disastrous consequences for your dog. In Kenny's case, thankfully, a big breed dog, a large breed dog, a single Grape is going to be absolutely fine. But you might be surprised with actually how few grapes and raisins it's going to take to cause poisoning. So head over to that calculator and make sure the poisoning doesn't happen, because prevention is always better than seeking emergency treatment.
Get your questions answered at callthevet.org.
Now, the most common poisoning, certainly that I see in dogs, is actually chocolate poisoning, or the most common potential poisoning, because thankfully most dog and cat owners are aware of the risks that chocolate can pose. And you won't be surprised to hear I've actually got a calculator about that as well. So it always pays to know what the danger is. And with chocolate, milk chocolate is not as dangerous as dark chocolate. But again, it all depends on the size of your dog. Head over to the show notes and there'll be a link to the chocolate calculator as well, so that in the future, if they raid your Easter egg supply, which is coming up, really don't keep them in anywhere that your dog can get to. Keep them really in an up high cupboard, because the calls that I get around Easter for dogs eating chocolates, breaking into boxes and eating all the wrappers and all kinds of things, you wouldn't believe how common that is. But head over to that chocolate poisoning calculator as well, so that you know whether you need to worry in the future. And really, until next time, I'm Dr. Alex. This is the Call the Vet podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future questions. Take care.
You've been listening to Call the Vet. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of the show that answers all of your pet questions.